What's going on, guys? Dan Watson, and here we have our first update for the R5. I actually have two right here. I've been testing them side by side, one with the update and one without it, to really give you a side-by-side comparison of everything that is new, and especially overheating. Now, I've been playing around with these updates for about a week actually, and I've had a ton of time to test them out. These have been the most confusing updates I have ever used. So first of all, pretty much everything in here is kind of classified as a fix. Usually those kinds of updates go out pretty silently, no fanfare at all. However, we all wanted to know if this update was going to fix overheating. And what was very interesting is when I asked Canon pretty clearly on that, we weren't really given a straight answer. So it was kind of, let's see how it affects it. It might be a little better in certain circumstances, but probably not. And they certainly weren't able or willing to give out increases of times and how we're going to record them. So that's where all the testing comes into play. Now, the only mention of like overheating is a very confusing statement, and I'm going to read it exactly. It says, temperature control and shooting time control in video shooting have been improved. In addition, the total shooting time when the short time recording and power on off are performed repeatedly at room temperature is improved. This is the craziest statement I've ever seen, and I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what they're going after and how to test this. However, I have actually been able to make these cameras shoot 4K 60 for over 3 hours, so the results are going to be amazing. So here's what we've got on here. So it says the temperature detection and controls have been improved, not the shooting length. So it sounds like the temperatures are basically more accurate and not necessarily better. Kind of a weird way of putting it, especially if they think that they've increased shooting time. Now, the second item is a bit more specific. It does say that the total shooting time is longer when short time recording and power on off are performed repeatedly. So this is what gets interesting. So as you turn off the camera and turn it back on, maybe you wait for like a minute or something like that, it seems to be that that is the big improvement. So I did a ton of testing on these, both 4K 24, high quality 4K 60. So this is basically what we're seeing here. So the first thing I wanted to try was just a flat out 4K 24 high quality recording. This is what I would want to shoot for like interviews, weddings, ceremonies, things like that. The low quality is okay, but it's a noticeable step down in quality. So hard to justify upgrading to a camera, especially compared to like other camera systems that do offer higher quality 4K recording. I'm recording right now on the Nikon Z6 that is shooting oversampled 4K 24 unlimited. I haven't overheated this camera, recorded for hours. So cameras like that are recording 4K 24 high quality with no problem. These should be able to, but they're not quite. So we are about to hit the 25-minute mark right now. I have the EOS R5 with the firmware update on the right, 1.1, and the 1.0 on the left. So we'll see how these are working. We're recording 4K 60. So I basically got that overheating warning right on both cameras at pretty much the exact same time. It's actually crazy how similar those were, kind of a little suspicious. So in that mode, both of these cameras overheated identically. I mean, it was literally this second. So if you think this isn't controlled by a timer, this is definitely controlled by a timer. I think it was 33 minutes. I'll put exact numbers on the screen, but these things are controlled exactly. All right, so both cameras just shut down. We'll go ahead and turn them off. Give it 2 minutes on the timer and then see if either one of these have recovered at all. All right, so we have now let these recover for a few minutes. Let's turn them back on and see what we've got on the screen. Both are still overheating, still can't record on either camera. So we've had just over a 5-minute rest, turning both cameras on. We have 3 minutes of recording on one camera, 4 minutes on the other, so we have 1 more minute of recovery. We'll keep them off and see if it goes up a little bit more. So we've got another 5 minutes of rest, probably about 10 total. Turn these both on and see where they're at. We've got 5 minutes recording on both cameras, so really no appreciable difference on either one. Another 5 minutes has gone by. Let's go ahead and switch these on. And we have 10 minutes on both cameras. So we'll go ahead and hit record, and we'll see if both of these cameras kind of time out at the same time again. Now I went ahead and just hit go again on these cameras to see what they would do on that second go around. Now, the original R5 with the 1.0 update gave me exactly 10 minutes. I think it was 10 minutes and a couple seconds, or right around 11. However, the new update actually gave me longer recording than what it was saying. So both of them were saying 10 minutes of recording time on the timer, but on the 1.1 update, I was actually getting more record time. So that's very interesting that the timer actually seems less accurate on the new one, but is giving me more recording time. Now I did this test a couple different ways, and including with 4K 60, and basically we're concluding here that things are very similar. So on the first recording, you'll basically get the exact same as before. I've seen a couple of people say that they've gotten longer. I have not gotten longer. It's been really consistent to be able to get me the exact same recording when recording in the IPB mode is what I did most of these at, to be able to maximize card shooting. But that second time or third time or subsequent times, you're able to get a little bit more on the new update. And again, I don't think it's significant enough to really make a difference there. Now, for whatever reason, my 8K recording times are way longer. I actually recorded a straight 24-minute clip, and that's despite the timer still saying the same 15 minutes, even on the newer version. It recorded 24 minutes straight. I went ahead and turned off the camera after it overheated, gave it 3 minutes of rest. And again, it only said 1 minute on the timer, and I went over 5 minutes of recording in 8K after that. The only thing to keep in mind is that once you overheat this camera, it will lock you out of all modes. There's really all high quality modes. I guess you can shoot low quality 4K, but all high quality modes will be locked out, and it really does take a long time to recover. So the best case for this is to not let it overheat. Now, where things get crazy interesting is when you're talking intermittent recording. So that's a little bit more real life to how I would shoot like B-roll and things like that. So two big uses for the camera would be 4K 24, interviews, wedding ceremonies, things like that. Just a lot of general shooting, these videos, 4K 24. And then the other one is going to be B-roll, which would be 4K 60, 4K 120, all of those modes. And that's where I tested next. And that's where things are just insane. So first I ran both cameras, going about 3 to 4 minutes on, one camera off to let it kind of cool down. Now do keep in mind, you have to turn the camera off. You cannot let it be in standby. You cannot just not record. That will not allow the camera to get time back. Now, if you turn it off, it will start to accumulate time back, so make sure you turn the camera off. Now, with about 3 to 4 minutes on and about 1 minute off, there were some variations that were just kind of hard to see between these two cameras, and it's really all over the place. So keep in mind that these cameras have horrible recovery time. So if you shoot until it overheats and then you kind of turn it off, in 30 minutes, you probably will not have full recording. Usually it takes about an hour or two for these cameras to cool down and you to actually get that full recording mode back. And so intermittent shooting on these cameras has been horrible in the past, because even if you're shooting, stopping, turning off the camera, shooting, stopping, turning off the camera, when you turn off the camera, you're just not gaining back a lot of time. And that's meant that you're basically still overheating these cameras like crazy, which is sad, because if you take a 400-degree pizza out of the oven, it's not 400 degrees after 10 minutes, it's room temperature. So I don't know why these cameras are really taking that long to cool down. Now with the old R5 with the 1.0 update, it basically performed as expected, pretty much 100% true to the timer. So if the timer said 10 minutes, I was getting 10 minutes. When the timer started wearing down and I was getting 2 minutes of recording on the timer, I got about 2 minutes, and then it would overheat on me or shut down or whatever the case may be. And so I was basically spot on with that. Now, where things were crazy is with the new 1.1 update. It is not true to the numbers. So as I started running it down, the time started decreasing. So at first I would turn it back on. I would have 20 minutes of recording, then 15, then 5, then 3, then 2. But that is where things got a little bit interesting. So as I started approaching like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I basically started shooting for about 2 to 3 minutes on and 1 minute off. So basically, because I don't want to overheat the camera, I want to see how much I can record on it. In doing that, I basically never went below 2 minutes. The camera would not overheat. As long as I didn't record more than 2 to 3 minutes and let it rest for about a minute, then I was able to shoot pretty much continuous. In fact, even when I had like 1 minute of recording on the camera, I would record 2 to 3 minutes and it would say 3 minutes recording. I have no idea what's going on with this camera that it's so off from the timer, but it is actually giving me much more recording with these intermittent shooting. So the old R5 overheated on me like crazy. There were just a ton of times over the course of this sequence that it was overheating, while the new R5 with the 1.1 never overheated as long as I didn't go over that time. Now, 2 hours of recording, I was able to record a ton of time in that 2 hours because I was only taking brief 1 minute breaks in that. I'll put the exact numbers of how much recording I got done in that 2 hours on both cameras. After that, I decided to stress the camera a little bit more because basically I was shooting unlimited. So I started shooting about 3 minutes of recording with 1 minute of rest. And again, even if 1 minute left was on the timer, I could still shoot 3 to 4 minutes and the camera was not actually shutting down on me. So as long as I was letting the camera rest for about a minute and not shooting more than about 2 to 3 minutes, I was basically able to go unlimited on these cameras as far as recording. So I'm gonna say that the R5 is way more capable of handling overheating than Canon is allowing it. They're definitely limiting this camera based on timers, because if you kind of record in a certain way, the camera's still getting hotter than it would after one 25-minute take, and yet the camera is still allowing you to shoot 3 hours into it. The camera was way hotter than it was when I just did my first 20-30 minute recording. So obviously it has nothing to do with internal temperatures and all about timers for this one. So hopefully Canon, you gotta change this. I mean, this is absolutely insane that you're keeping it this way. But I'm gonna say that you are much more likely to be able to use this in the real world. The same thing applies with 4K 120, where as long as I was giving it about a minute rest and not shooting for more than a minute or two in that mode, the 4K 120, I was able to get significantly more recording time on that mode, probably double, and in most modes, I never really reached a limit and I recorded for hours. Now, Canon was not very upfront when they discussed this at all. I really wish that they would describe what's going on here a little bit better, because if you're going by what they've released here, it would be more accurate, and it's definitely not more accurate. It's definitely less timer based and more overheating based, or they've just made some changes to how the timer is, but it's not really reflecting true times as much. So it's kind of hard to really get with the picture how the camera is going to perform on you, just that it is probably going to beat whatever time it says on the timer. In fact, I had 1 minute of recording. I shot 2 minutes straight at 4K 60, checked what it said. It still said, actually, I had like 2 or 3 minutes. I recorded again, not turning off the camera at all. I got another 5 minutes of recording before the camera actually overheated. So you're definitely able to beat the timer on the new update, and that's really a good thing, and it really might change how much I'm able to use the camera for things like B-roll. Now, if you are shooting video, again, remember the camera still has a 30-minute limit on it, and then also, in addition to that, we are dealing with no ability to dual record to both cards in any mode right there. So just kind of keep in mind those are 2 other big weaknesses on the video side I would like to see fixed. Canon does say that we are getting a lower bitrate RAW option coming soon. So it still might be 8K RAW, probably not 4K RAW, but maybe a RAW light. And then also we should see C-Log 3 coming up soon, which should give us a little bit more dynamic range. So hopefully this was good for you guys. Appreciate the thumbs up. Stay tuned. We've been shooting like crazy. Got a huge video coming up with this camera. I'm so excited to show you guys. So stay tuned. Hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you soon in the next video.